live on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. It's time for Middays with Q. Now to your host, Rich Quinones.
And good afternoon, everyone. 12 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. Indeed, a Thursday edition of Middays with Q, coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town studios. We are powered by ION TV, and of course, exclusively on the newly formed, rebranded Coastal Sports Network. Rich Quinones here. Mi hermano Angel Martinez behind the glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air. About 60 plus to play with on this Thursday. You can always tweet at me at RichQonQ. Check us out on the YouTube channels, Broad Street South, RichQonQ, respectively. And we love for you to get in on the conversation and let your voice be heard. As always, bring something to the table over the next 60 minutes. 727-858-6650. Busy show as the heat is starting to wear on us. We are getting crankier. We are getting testier. It's happening down in Florida. It's happening down on the West Coast. It's happening down on the Jersey Shore, which tells you we are pushing through the dog days of summer. We got the midseason classic coming up, midway point of the baseball season. NBA news and notes to get into. Is it I guess you can say a conspiracy theory when it comes to a shoe or no shoe when it comes to Jaylen Brown and Team USA? We'll get into that. We already knew this move was going to be made last week, but it's official. Men's soccer, that move with their head coach out as well. I mentioned baseball. And then I want to get into also second half of the show today. I've got a couple of faces of the franchise in the NFL because training camp's right around the corner. And I got my thoughts on my New York Football Giants and episode 2 of Hard Knocks, which is now just becoming a joke. But I've got some faces, if you will, of franchises in the NFL. And I'm we'll give you the barometer, the measuring stick, if some of these players are indeed on the hot seat. But as always, we encourage you to get into the conversation, 727-858-6650. And before we close it out, our Q's picks, that'll be courtesy of our BYP edition from our good friends at Frost Roasted Coffee. But a couple things on the NBA. So news came down, $76 billion new media rights. That's kind of where we'll start it off and kick it off on this Thursday. 11-year deal, which tells you right off the bat now that salaries are going to go up exponentially in the NBA. It is crazy. The NBA, I feel, is the only league where you can average 8 points, 2 rebounds, maybe an assist, and you're going to get paid a max deal. I mean, that is the beauty of the NBA. And now with this new deal in place, and I will get to it, and I'll give you my thoughts on it, because it's crazy to think that the money that some of these players are going to make, and some of them are not even worth it. But it breaks down like this. We know ESPN, we know ABC, we know now NBC. Remember back in the day? The NBA on NBC, Amazon Prime, TNT has 5 days to match these deals. But this tells you that the NBA is trying to rival what the NFL is doing, and everyone's looking for another outlet, another platform to sprout out content. I mean, look what's going on. You put on NBA TV. We know the season is a long season. It's a grind with the playoffs. If they're extended series, you get into June, you got the NBA Finals. Boom, the parade, here we go. Right into the draft, right into Summer League. I mean, that's where we're at. And now, because of the Olympics, we'll get into the men's basketball as well. But that being said, astronomical, 11-year deal, $76 billion with the media rights. I pulled up some numbers. This kind of gives you the breakdown, and I want to share with you guys. So NBC, their deal is going to be about $2.5 billion per season. So they're pretty much going to showcase the games on Sunday night. Once the NFL season is ended, you're not going to go against that monster. They'll air games on Tuesday throughout the regular season Monday night package as well. That'll be streamed on Peacock. Prime Video, they'll have games on Thursday nights They're after they're done carrying NFL games, other nights, Friday and Saturday. So good placement right there. NBC and Prime, they're going to alternate, and it looks like Prime Video's rights would average about 1.8 billion per year. TNT, we love to get the NBA on TNT. Right now, we're not sure where we're at with that, but Adam Silver, the commissioner, said during the NBA Finals last month, the length of the deals did not confirm 11 years specifically. Quote, is good for the stability of the league, which again, I feel as though basketball is kind of taking a forefront with everything going on from college to WNBA to Caitlin Clark to Angela Reese to now the NBA, the finals, and now the Olympic roster. Listen, I put this out, and do not forget to follow us on Coastal Sports Network as well. Q poll question of the day. So the roster comes out for USA men's basketball. And let's not pretend this is like 1992. Please. It's bad enough I'm dealing with friggin' allergies and 100 degrees in Jersey. I don't need to get more agitated. I got to hear people start to, this is, guys that are not getting picked on the team. Oh my God, Jaylen Brown did not get selected to the roster. Who cares? I mean, this is much to do about nothing. Are we looking at this and say, well, yeah, he earned it, it's a big deal? Or this is more about fit? And I got a couple problems with this because I believe if you're going to build these rosters and you're going for gold, it's all about fit. Now, 1992 was a different animal because 1992, they were just ransacking people. I mean, it was a glorified scrimmage, if you will, for that roster. I mean, it was unbelievable. Wall-to-wall Hall of Famers, right? Wall-to-wall Hall of Famers on that roster. So you look at Jaylen Brown, real nice player, 1-2 tandem with Jason Tatum. You throw in Derek White, who, oh, by the way, got paid, who, oh, by the way, now replaces Kawhi Leonard, who, oh, by the way, happens to be Jaylen Brown's teammate. I have no problem with White over Brown once Kawhi Leonard withdraws. It's about fit as much as talent. And once LeBron and Steph and KD decided they want to be part of this again because the ego is is a very powerful thing in this world, right? Especially in sports, the male ego. They had to make adjustments. And people, I'm reading here now, people are like, well, Jaylen and guys like, Jaylen Brown and Kyrie are really outspoken. Yeah, well, LeBron to some extent has said some knuckleheadish kind of things and to some extent has been outspoken. LeBron basically pulled the strings and the league was a puppet to his kid getting drafted. So let's not even go there. Brown now with this conspiracy that because he hasn't a shoe deal inked, he's got no shoe deal signed right now. So he's a shoe free agent. Maybe Nike had a hand in this. I mean, this is absolutely, how about this? How about if you're Brown, you can be disappointed, but the perception, the appearance, and the look right now from Jaylen Brown, it's almost as though you're not happy for your teammate, a D2 player who stepped out and showed out in the playoffs. Great run for the Boston Celtics, had some big games, big moments, got paid. Now he's part of this roster. Honestly, I don't care. I think this is much to do about nothing, but I do love when people get so bent out of shape over these types of moves. It's everything really in life is political. Is it not? It's always who you know. It's always about the politics. Friend of a friend of a friend. They walk in your resume. You got a better shot to get the job. So I'm not saying Brown's not a great player. I think he's a really good player. But if you're thinking about winning a gold, if you're trying to make a run at a gold, then obviously you want the fit. And I know people would sit there and say Brown, Tatum, and Holiday, man, imagine those guys on the floor at the same time. I don't know if there's enough balls to go around. So I'm not buying into this theory of Nike. I'm not buying into this theory that you're outspoken. I just don't think it's the right fit at the right time for Jaylen Brown. And quite frankly, I'm not going to get giddy over watching men's basketball. It does not, I feel as though people, they want to revert back and they want to look at the heyday. That's what they want to look at. There's never going to be a dream team. Ever. Again. You're never going to get the likes. Think about this. You go back, the first 10 players were selected back in 1991. Let me just throw out these names. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, John Stockton, Karl Malone, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, my guy, Patrick Ewing, Chrissy Mullins, David Robinson, Charles Barkley, and then obviously everyone knows the beef, the riff, Jordan, and, Isaiah Thomas and Magic, Isaiah Thomas, Chuck Daly, the head coach, put in a bad spot, rocking a hard place, Clyde Drexler over Isaiah Thomas. Okay, fine. You had Christian Laettner, was chosen over Shaq. People argue that as well. Laettner, one of the all-time great college players. Obviously, Shaq, shoo-in, walk in, here you go. Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, all-time great. But that being said, it's like, come on, man. I mean, even if these guys were 60, 70%, no one's ever going to top what we saw back then. They were ripping and roaring and just absolutely just dog walking teams. They were dog walking teams back in the day. And we loved it. We enjoyed it. We wanted more. It's lost its juice. It's lost its luster. To me, it's really much to do about nothing. We put it out. The poll question of the day. Do not forget, follow us now, obviously, on Coastal Sports Network, on X at CSN Florida, Facebook, and Twitter as well. And the show coming at you on Broad Street South. And, of course, my YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. So, nice player. But, again, you're getting paid. You just want a ring. Don't come off with the petty and the bitterness and the jealousy. And the fact is, your teammate got the slot. Be happy for him. But, I think sometimes we ask a little too much when it comes to that in the world of sports. Do we not? So that's kind of where we're at with the NBAs. We're just cranking it up on a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here. Mi hermano Angel Martinez behind the glass producing show, keeping us on the air. We are coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the Sports Radio 102.9 FM, Southwest Florida's newest game in town studios, powered by ION TV for all your breaking news, weather, if there's accidents going on, if there's traffic jams, if there's flare-ups, wherever you are in Southwest Florida and Tampa, give them a follow, ION TV. And of course, as we continue to rebrand and put out some really great content now, Coastal Sports Network, certainly proud to be a part of what we are growing here. So we got about 45 plus to play with. Next week, back full in the saddle. We got to go NFL heavy. I want to get to a little baseball on the other side. I'll read off some of your Facebook posts as well. You guys can connect with me, 727-858-6650. I need to get an allergy sponsor because the sniffing and the inhaling, it's just got to be so annoying for the listening audience. Sometimes I got to cover the mic. Sometimes, go ahead. You don't want to get a bad one in there, but I'm just saying if, maybe a Flonase or a Benadryl or an Allegra or a Zylol, something to knock the hot toddy at 12:12, not a problem, but got to knock it out of you, Angel. Got to knock it out of you on this Thursday.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Andersen windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Andersen windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
ION Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, IONTP.com. ION Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by ION Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game app and tell your friends that Florida has a new leader in digital sports radio.
Oh my God, coming back at you. Oh man. You remember back in the day, the movie trailer guy? There's a channel, I don't know if you have it, it's called Nothing But Trailers. You're shaking out because you don't want to come on because the microphone's iffy today and your voice is all over the place. So we're brought to you by American Sign Language now. Is that what you want me to friggin' do right now? Is you're shaking? Okay, Angel's shaking his head. But anyway, horrible. Get off the microphone. So listen, it's Nothing But Trailers. And it's fantastic when you watch some of the stuff from like the 70s or like the 80s. With the old school movies, like the cult classics. Like there are movies that I would say there's 5, 6, 7, 8 movies. Maybe there's top 10, but there's 5 where it doesn't matter the scene. I'm in. Godfather, Jaws, The Fugitive, Shawshank Redemption, Scarface. Now I can give you a lot more, but the scene, I don't care. I'm in. But you throw in movie trailer guy. Oh, are you kidding me? In a world where the mafiosa took place in Little Havana, one immigrant fled Cuba to go to Miami. His name, Antonio Tony Montana, Al Pacino, Stephen Bauer, Michelle Pfeiffer, Scarface. I can watch that 100 times, over and over and over. Every line in that movie is fantastic. I used to have a Chi-Chi, the Yayo shirt. Tommy in, Tony, Tommy in. By the way, speaking of Miami, how bad the Florida Marlins, I put up these numbers. The Florida Marlins, they're not historically bad like what we're seeing with the Chicago White Sox. By the way, Florida might be in my Q's picks as well. But I pulled up their run differential. I mean, listen, it's bad right now. With Tampa Bay, the Yankees finally got off the snide, stopped the bleeding, beat Tampa Bay last night. The Marlins are horrible. Minus 143 run differential. You can probably make an argument their best player is either the DH, De La Cruz, or Bell, the first baseman. They can't win. There's no marketing down there. The attendance is horrible. The same thing with Tampa Bay. That is just flat out bad baseball at this moment. And then you look conversely, they're 28 games back in the NL East. And the Phillies are trying to run away with division. And give the Phillies credit, man. Once they get their lineup situated and everyone's healthy, they beat the Dodgers last night 4-3. They're 60-32, I believe. I would argue right now, the Phillies are clearly the top team. Listen, I can make an argument that the Phillies are the best team in baseball when they are healthy. I mean, Nola's turning back the clock. I don't think you're going to get to Nola that won 17, 18 games a couple of years ago. He'll be on the hill tonight, but he has really pitched well. I mean, it's just crazy. We're arguing about backup catchers for the Philadelphia Phillies. That's the hot topic in town right now. I mean, give me a break. They're 60-32. I think they're 7-3 in their last 10. Plus 119 run differential. They're trying to run away with the NL East. They lead the Braves by 8.5, 9 games. The Mets are starting to actually wake up a little bit. It's all about the second wild card right now for the Braves and the Mets. But the Phillies are clearly the best team in baseball with their 60 wins. Baltimore, 57 wins. The Yankees, 56 wins. Cleveland, 57 wins. I pulled up also the updated MVP odds. So right now, if you kind of been living under a rock, and if you haven't really been paying attention to what's going on in baseball, and if you haven't been paying attention, to me, when Shohei Ohtani signed with the Dodgers, I'm like, this is great. We're going to get a lot of Dodgers games, got a lot of the Angels on the West Coast. Has anyone looked up and saw Shohei Ohtani's numbers this year? He's batting .317. He's hit 28 home runs. He's ripped 22 doubles. He's compiled over 100 hits. He's driven in 66. And right now, clearly, the front runner for NL MVP. Now, I still think Bryce Harper will have a hand in this at the end of the day, depending upon how well the Phillies, if the Phillies go out and win 95, 100 games. See, the problem is the Dodgers are going to win 90 plus as well. And Ohtani's the catalyst. You look at that Dodgers lineup, Hernandez, Freeman, Smith, Betts, Pages, Ohtani, you got 5 or 6 guys that are going to 25 plus home runs. I mean, they've just brilliant this season. And then conversely, you look at the Philadelphia Phillies, and as I alluded to, I think the Phillies right now are the best team in baseball. So we'll dive into that. We're going to refresh. We'll regroup. We're going to come back on the other side. We got a lot of baseball to get into. I want to give you the updated odds. I did not forget about that. Joey B looking good all day up jersey. Joey, I mean, listen, when it's 95 and I go outside for 5 minutes, the bronzing it occurs, man. We had to turn up. Yeah, go ahead, Angel. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's what we sound like right now. I feel as though you and I are one of those 80s phones in the house where the rotary phone. And then, like, if I mess up, I got to start dialing again. I feel like if I put a cup to the wall, I can probably hear you better. So let's do this. Yeah, the bronzing just occurs. I don't know what you want me to say, Joey. It just happens. I walk outside, the sun hits me, and we're off. We're off. Let me give you updated odds on the other side. Well, you know what? Hold on. Let's do this. We'll do that at 35. I got them right now for the betting public. I want to give you guys some updated odds. Right now in the NL, Ohtani, he's the favorite. Then obviously Harper has some short odds. Shohei Ohtani, just to give you an idea, went from -330 to -230. Over in the AL, man, if the Yankees continue to struggle, and I know they got the win, but they just haven't played well of late. Aaron Judge is still putting up historic numbers. He's going to hit 50 home runs. That'll be the 3rd time in his career he's done it, as long as he stays healthy. If he doesn't stay healthy, take a flyer on the kid Henderson with Baltimore, because right now he's at +350. Soto's sitting at +1,500 to win it. That's not going to happen. And I don't want to see Aaron Judge get hurt. Aaron Judge never plays a complete season. So point being, sometimes if you're going to vote, if you're going to bet on these awards, a couple years ago, I made the case for Ohtani over Trout. Now, I'm a huge Mike Trout fan. Cumberland County, Millville, called his games in high school. Fantastic player. Last several years, the injury bug has really hurt Mike Trout. That's when you jump on Ohtani, because you're looking at what Ohtani's doing on the mound and what Ohtani's doing at the plate. And that was one of the reasons I was able to cash in on Ohtani over the last couple of years, because Trout was never going to play 162. I feel the same way about Judge. I'm always hesitant to bet Aaron Judge to win the AL MVP, because you have to have him on on the field all the time, but his numbers are absolutely staggering. Ohtani's numbers are staggering. The ball is flying out of the parks all over. Runs are up in baseball. You know, when the weather gets like this hot, humid, the ball's going to carry. We see it in Colorado. We see it in Yankee Stadium, Short Porch. We see it in Citizens Bank Park. We're not seeing it in Tampa or Miami because those teams right now cannot score to save them life. So, all right, midway through a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. Appreciate everyone chiming in. 727-858-6650. I want to get into a little NFL. Got some tweets too and some comments on Brown off the USA roster. We'll get into that. We'll read off your Facebook comments. Keep it locked in. Keep engaging with us on this Thursday. We are powered by our wonderful friends, courtesy of Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Also, Coastal Sports Network. Angel has done a fantastic job of putting everything in place. We're adding more content. We are adding more shows, more partnerships, and we see those friggin' little eyeballs. We see you guys watching us. You know who you are. We catch you. We have spies. The eyes, chicos, they never lie. We see. You can copy, you can emulate, you can try your best. It's original evergreen content. That's what we're trying to give you right here. Start the week off right. Start your Mondays with Pete Sheppard, 7 to 10, Martinez Company, 10 to 12, and myself, Rich Quinones, Middays with Q, 12 to 2. Tomorrow, a little football heavy. I want to mix in some divisional talk. But on the other side, as we are plus midway through, I want to get into 5 or 6 players in the NFL. I want to get your thoughts on this as well. When we talk about pressure point, right? Being under that microscope, and you would think they're pretty much all quarterbacks. They're not. Little mixed bag. We'll get into that. I'll give you my picks, and that'll be part of our BYP segment from our good friends at Fresh Roasted Coffee. So keep it locked in. 12:30 on the East Coast right here. Thursday edition, Middays with Q. Continues right after this.
Hey, Dad. Your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad. Your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class, let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at Rich Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
People on Facebook are hilarious. What do we got there? We got a horn? Is that what do we got there? We got one of those horns? A ship? A ship passing. Oh my God. I don't know. It's not even the sound effects. Everything is just discombobulated. What is that? Sounds like one of those disco horns.
Don't forget.
Even people on Facebook are goofy. Alex chimes in, Q, loving the show, but come on. You haven't even talked about the All-Stars yet. Alonso, Holmes, and Arez don't deserve to be All-Stars. What are you talking about? Luis Arez leads the friggin' NL in batting, you goofball. See, that's what I'm saying. You leave open season when you allow people to text and chime in and call in. 727-858-6650. Pete Alonso, it's a popularity contest with baseball. That's all it is. I don't know. Why do we get, as fans, explain this to me. Why do we get so bent out of shape when a player is left off, say, a Pro Bowl ballot or an all-star team? We can sit there and say, hey, he was deserving it. Personally, in the NFL, if I'm looking at these players, I would rather be an all-pro. I don't care about being a Pro Bowl caliber player. Be an all-pro, right? Because that's a legit, credible voting in the NFL. And everything else is pretty much, when you allow fans to now have their hand in how the voting is done, then you're going to have people complain. I mean, imagine if the MVP of all these respective sports was voted upon by the fans. People would be going nuts. I mean, last year, everyone thought, writing in stone, DeMar Hamlin, comeback player of the year. You know, the guy literally died on the field. And that's a horrible story. And it's great to see that he was walking and he put on a uniform. But you can't, you have to watch yourself when you start to do that. We mentioned it during the season. I mean, and this is not, I say this very respectfully. People were like, well, he came back from death, but then make him an inspirational, give him like a Walter Payton award, right? I mean, the ESPYs has become an absolute joke. People still get bent out of shape over that, like Courage Award, not the comeback player of the year. And he's already the odds on favorite if he has 20 snaps of action to win it. Some books already pulled it off the market, DeMar Hamlin. We get too bent out of shape when it comes to how we look at these all-stars, fan voting. People get too involved, and then there's a bias. And look, there's baseball players that sit there, and you have writers that refuse to absolutely, yeah, exactly. It would be a disaster, right? It's exactly, folks, fans vote on players they like. So we're getting so bad out of shape. It is a popularity contest. But if you allow some baseball writers, how do you not vote some of these guys in 100%? 98, 99%. Like, what Hall of Fame voters have, that kind of bias towards players? It's not like Jimmy Rice, who, great player, but the Boston media hated him, and he had to wait, and he had to wait, and he had to wait. But you're looking at some of these all-time great. You're going to tell me that Mariano Rivera is not 100% lock. You're going to tell me that Willie Mays, Ken Griffey, these are not 100%. Who are these guys? The ones that are not voting for these guys, like, take their power away. I'll never forget. I had years ago, and I believe it was Richard Justice, who, in fairness, decent columnist, covered the Astros, or still does, I think, for so many years. But I'll never forget, he came on my show once, and every player he was throwing out there was a Houston Astro. I'm like, not all these guys are getting in the Hall of Fame. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. Like, that was so slanted and narrow-minded. And I have to use him in as example, and it's nothing personal. It's just saying that sometimes there are beat writers that are so fixated on players, and they want to push their narrative of the player getting in. These Hall of Fames, that's what they are. The Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Good, not the Hall of Decent, not the Hall of Very Good. I don't care about the character. Look at some of the players in the Hall of Fame. Ray Lewis is in the Hall of Fame. Lawrence Taylor's in the Hall of Fame. Ty Cobb's in the Hall of Fame, right? No one cares about, the personalities talk to me of what they did on, right? And if you can't have a conversation without bringing up certain players, then they're not Hall of Fame. Some of these randos that call themselves media are not objective, but that's the problem. And I appreciate it. Not Blanchot. And I love that name, by the way. That's the problem because now, like, I've covered baseball, I've covered the NBA, I've covered the NFL. I was credentialed, right? So the guys we have on, these are credentialed guys. They've got votes. Steve Gardner, USA Today, he's a voter in MLB Hall of Fame. And I've argued with him over years about the merits of, the voting system. I think is flawed. Boxing, I call the fights. You guys know that. Call the fights for TV, call the fights for different outlets, call the fights for CBS Sports Network, call the fights right now for Team Combat League. The voting in boxing, it's so political that you have all these states have all these boxing Hall of Fames. And sometimes they're voting in people that don't even rep the state. Sometimes they vote in fighters that maybe fought one time in the state. That's ludicrous. You're not going to have a fighter who fought 30 times in Vegas and one time in New Jersey or Atlantic City or New York be part of their Hall of Fame. Now, I'm not talking about the International Boxing Hall of Fame. That's a different animal. But I'm talking about in these markets, in these cities, that's a travesty. That's a joke. There's no credibility within that. And it's nothing personal against those that are in. It's the process. It's the voting process. It does not make sense. There's no rhyme. There's no reason to it. We are so content with looking at players sometimes. What are we looking at subjectively? Are we looking at in football? Everyone remembers years ago, the life expectancy of a running back was 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Okay, fine. So we look at a player, and I have to bring him up because I think he's the case study for this. Terrell Davis. So Terrell Davis, when Terrell Davis was healthy and on the field, he was an exceptional running back. Terrell Davis rushed for 1,100 yards, 1,500 yards, 1,800 yards. Then he had the monster season in 1998 when he rushed for over 2,000 yards. Two players, 2,000 yards. And we know that OJ did it back in 73. Walter Payton as well. 2,000 yards. Okay, that was, years ago was get 1,000 yards. You were a heck of a running back. But when you break it down, you're talking 60, 70 yards a game. Get 100 yards, now you're a game, 16 games, 17 games. Now you're 1,600, 1,700. Now you're kind of in a different category. You do that over 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you're itching towards 10,000 like that. Second part of Terrell Davis's career, okay, once he hit 27, he got hurt. 28, he got hurt. 29, he got hurt. Out of football by the time he was 30, 211, 282, 701 yards. 4 touchdowns over the last 3 years. So again, as I like to say, and he's a great back. If you add up, I got to do the fast liberal arts math, York College, here we go. So this is kind of roundabout. You're talking the first 4 years of his career, Terrell Davis rushed for over 6,000 yards. The last 3 years of his career, Terrell Davis rushed for 1,100 yards, and he was injured. And he won an MVP as well, but he was a great back when it came to the playoffs. Terrell Davis averaged 142 yards a game in the playoffs. But point being, so when I look at a guy like, I don't know, Tiki Barber, look at Tiki Barber's career, right? What are we looking at when we look at Tiki Barber's career? We're talking about longevity. And Tiki Barber was a third down back. He was actually a punt returner early on in his career. He was not a full-time back until his 4th year in the league. And oh, by the way, he took the Giants to the Super Bowl in 2000, but he ran for over 10,000 yards. Tiki Barber had over, if I just pulled it up, 15,000 yards from scrimmage total. Punt returns, receiving, retired 1,600 yards. He was 31. He could have kept playing. Tiki Barber can't sniff the Hall of Fame. Like, what are we looking at? How are we measuring these players? You can make the same case in baseball where a guy had maybe a stretch. If you pull up Don Mattingly's numbers and Kirby Puckett's numbers They are pretty much identical. One's in the Hall of Fame, one's not. I mean, so it's like, what are we looking at? That's the beauty of sports talk, what we do. That's the beauty of if you have uh, if you're honored to be a voter, you have to take that serious. You have to. Harold Baines, nice guy. Harold Baines to me is not the definition of a Hall of Fame player. He's not. Fred McGriff is a Hall of Fame player over Harold Baines. Harold Baines was what I would call a compiler. But when it's all said and done, if you look at his numbers, if I said, hey, this player had 2,800 hits and this player had 384 home runs and this player batted 289 in his career, you say pretty decent. But the player was never top 10. I think maybe one time in MVP. And the player only made 4 or 5 All-Stars in 20 plus year career. That's not a Hall of Famer. So what are we looking at? That's I've always had that issue, and I know it's so subjective. And we do the same thing in the NFL. Like everyone knows, I'm probably to an annoying sense one of the biggest defenders and supporters of Eli Manning. Like to this day, I maintain Phil Simms should be in the Hall of Fame. 2 Super Bowls, 22 of 25, a couple throwaways, 268, 3 touchdowns, 39-20 Giants over the Broncos, 86, Super Bowl MVP. He got hit with some injuries, but he was solid. He was a great bad weather quarterback. Put up numbers back in the 80s. Not going to get a sniff. Eli Manning, I believe, will get into the Hall of Fame. People will say, you look at his starting record, right? As a starter, it goes back and forth. I get it. And those are fair arguments. But then if I take the Terrell Davis and then I look at the playoffs, then you have to equate what a quarterback does in the playoffs. That's why I hate that we tag wins and losses as a quarterback stat. It's tough, man. When we start to do that, you start to walk that slippery slope, right? Because I can give you quarterbacks that maybe didn't have the greatest records or the greatest touchdown to interception, stats, numbers, but they're in the Hall of Fame. I mean, listen, I give you one right now. Warren Moon, and I like Warren Moon. I've interviewed Warren Moon. He's been gracious to come on my show in the past. Warren Moon, I think, was an outstanding quarterback. Warren Moon, his career record was 102 and 101. One game over 500. Warren Moon was also part of one of the worst collapses in NFL history with that Oilers team against Buffalo Bills led by Frank Reich, a backup, not Jim Kelly, right? Then you get into the playoffs. Warren Moon won 3 playoff games. He was 3-7. Like those numbers to me, 17 touchdowns, 14 picks. But what we do is we encapsulate careers based on a couple of flash in the pan seasons. Now, I'm not saying he's not deserving of having that bronze and being inducted in 2006. What I'm saying is, what are we looking at? What are the points here of interest? The NBA, when you go into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, that's exactly what it is. The Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. They're talking college, Olympics, right? If you played overseas, and then your pro career. You could have been that compiler. You could have played in the ABA. You could have played in the NBA. You could have played overseas in Europe. You could have played in China. You could have been a great college player, a great Olympian, but maybe not so much an NBA player, right? David Thompson, great high flyer, great college player. Not so much in the NBA, right? Pistol Pete, one of the all-time great college players of all time. Really good pro, really great pro, blending in together, Hall of Fame. So going back to the Not Bland Show's comments, I agree 100%, right? I think we're getting to this point where we have too many of the randoms. We have to go back to the credibility and the validity of the voting process, and we have to trust the voting process. We can't just leave it to chance because there's a lot of great players that are not going to sniff these opportunities to get enshrined. They're just not. But that's the beauty of these debates, right? You can always make a case for and against so many players. Look, did Roger Staubach put up great numbers? No, but from a shotgun position in the 70s, he threw over 20 touchdowns, which was unheard of. He was a great college player and he was a great pro. He's a Hall of Fame player. But by number standard, you say, oh, he didn't have good numbers. Yeah, but guess what? He finally got over the hump, deep runs in the playoffs, won a Super Bowl, right? Captain comeback, Roger Staubach. So someone once told me Terry Bradshaw did not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And I said, look, man, you can look at his numbers, look at the game back in the day, and they ran the football, and he had wall-to-wall Hall of Famers on defense, and you look at their backs, and you look at Swan and Stallworth and Cunningham, the tight end, and Rocky Blyer and all these guys, and Chuck Noll and all that defense. Terry Bradshaw made his bones in the playoffs. And he had some monster games in the playoffs, but he also had some bad turnovers in the playoffs. But when it's all said and done, how many Super Bowls did Terry Bradshaw lose? He lost none, 4 rings. So that, we judge, we look at the rings and we want to push these guys in. And then sometimes we forget to look at their whole arc of their career. And I can go on and on with this, right? Kurt Warner, look at the arcs of his career. So, all right, 12:50. About 15 plus to play with. I want to get into on the other side, and again, a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here, mi hermano Angel Martinez on the other side of the glass, coming at you on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, part of the Coastal Sports Network, and we are powered by Ion TV, which is ironic, Ion, right? Because as I mentioned, we see you. Look, Angel laughed when I do that. We see you. We see you following us. We know what you are trying to do. That's okay. That's okay. We're enjoying it. We're trying to give you guys some real good evergreen content. As I mentioned, start the week off right. Pete Sheppard Show 7 to 10. Martinez and Company 10 to 12. Myself, Rich Quinones, Middays with Q 12 to 2. We welcome aboard our good friend Jonathan Marshall and his brother doing Marshall Time. Great podcast, talking hoops. Listened to them last night. Those guys crushed it. Lloyd Vance is Insider Football Mondays at 8. So we're working on some really good programming. Do not forget to download the app. Download the friggin' app. Do us a favor. Follow us on social media platforms as well. All right, coming back on the other side, another little sip at the hot toddy on this Thursday afternoon edition of Middays with Q. I want to get into a couple players in the NFL. I want to get your thoughts at 727-858-6650. Pressure points, right? I guess, are we ratcheting up to pressure, the hot seat for some of these players? And we'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to continue with this kind of series leading up to the NFL season, and then we'll really do a big-time preview, divisional. I'll give you some good plays, props, divisional winners, win totals, and we'll see if we can put a little coin in the pocket during the NFL season. So we'll talk about that over the next couple of weeks, but we'll come back and we'll close it out. Pressure points on this Thursday edition of Middays with Q.
Ion Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, iontb.com. Ion Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by Ion Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Middays with Q. Here's Q.
Uh-oh. Do we have breaking news segment right now? Angel's going to tell me to refresh. Oh, I am on stage? Wait for it. Just give me that heads up. Give me that thumbs up. Refresh it. Yeah, there we go. We're going to be back. No, he says no. Wave it off. Don't do it. You're coming back. We're coming back. He says hang tight. Oh, really? I don't see anything. I see a black screen. So, All right. So listen, this is what we're going to do. Pretend you guys are watching a trailer, and I'll see you in 30 seconds.
Q will be right back. And let's see. It's back here. It'll be less than 10 seconds. And we'll pop right back into it all over again.
Oh, hey. Wilford Berkeley here.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, and I'll get to my picks from my fresh roasted. There is, I mean, he just incredible shrinking Hermano. He just popped up. There he is. How's that microphone working?
Right. I don't know. You tell me. I can hear you here on the app. I can hear you on the social. So it's on your end.
You know what? I bet you that the listeners, if they hear you talk, because we have such astute listeners, they will pinpoint. What are we doing? What do I see an emoji? What's the problem?
Let me take something here, and then I want you to hear what I'm hearing live.
Okay, go ahead. So no, I'm going to give you the floor. You talk, and then I'm going to set it up. So here you go. Tell me, audience, how Angel sounds.
Let me say something here, and then I want you to hear what I'm hearing live.
Okay, go ahead. So no, I'm going to give you the floor. You talk, and then I'm going to set it up. So.
I think it was fine.
Thank you. Hold on. Wait.
Didn't you just say the radio was fine?
Really?
Yep.
Really? Okay. You know what? I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm going to defer to the executive producer who, oh, by the way, the last time I checked, also shares the same bed with you. So she is not being objective. So what do we have here? Hold on. One more. Go ahead, roll them out. We want to hear it. We want to hear one. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Really? Did we? Really? I mean, seriously. I mean, this is where we're going. What happened? Where did it go off the rails with that? You sound like Charlie Brown. You do. You sound like Charlie Brown. Yeah. Go ahead, talk. Yeah, I seriously, you got to cut these guys off. I can't right now. I can't deal with this madness. I cannot deal with this madness. I'm getting text right now. It says, what cave or hole is Angel? Don't worry about it. We'll fight through it. I know. When it sounds okay on your end, you're waving me goodbye. All right, adios. Vaya con Dios. God be with you. All right, listen, I know it can be frustrating. By the way, the comments, I can't even get into them. I can't even get into them with these guys right now. All right, let me give you a couple players. Get your guys' thoughts. 727-858-6650. Couple quarterbacks start with. So I'm talking pressure points right now. Hot seat going into the NFL season. I'll give you two right off the bat. And I was going to do three from the NFCs, but I'm going to give you two. And I think they're pretty obvious. Dak Prescott, because he goes hand in hand with Mike McCarthy, the head coach. This nonsense that I can't again when these comments pop up. They just, I'm trying to keep it rolling. And all of a sudden these guys just throw the softballs out there. Yeah, he does sound like Aquaman or how he should sound. So Prescott, contract year. A lot of people are already talking about he wants another deal. We know about what's transpired over the last several years. We know what's transpired with Dak when it comes to, I can't get over that handle, by the way. We know what's transpired with the injuries, the inconsistent play in the playoffs. I think it's boom or bust for Dak Prescott this year. That leads me to Jalen Hurts, Angels' favorite quarterback, a couple years removed from the Super Bowl run. Would have been the MVP of the Super Bowl if the Eagles would have won that game. Last year, listen, you lose 6 out of 7 to close out the season, 7 of 8, bad showing against Tampa Bay in the wildcard game. Did he want to get on the plane to Seattle? Is he a good teammate? Is he all for himself? Did he throw the head coach under the bus? All this kind of stuff. Jalen Hurts, this is a huge year for Jalen Hurts because the Eagles have pretty much shown you that they're still all in. They want to make a run. They made the moves for Saquon Barkley. We'll see how he fits into that offensive scheme. We know about the playmakers in Brown and Smith. We know the tight end is underutilized. We know Swift was underutilized. But the head coach and the quarterback must. They have to get on the same page this year, because if they don't, it's going to be another down year for the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 3, go down in your backyard. 2 Florida quarterbacks. You can make a case for all 3 of them, right? You can make a case for all 3 of them. But I'm going, I think, pressure on Tua. And you guys know that I'm a big fan of Tua. I think Tua is a really good quarterback, but I know the conversation is he going to hold out? Yes, correct. In that Kevin Moore offense, Jalen might struggle early on. That's something to consider. But Tua, the contract, the numbers, the stats, he's got to stay healthy. I think people are waiting for the other shoe to drop when it comes to Tua this season. As he goes, that offense goes. Obviously, they lose that game on Sunday night where Josh Allen just crushes them with his arms and his legs. They avoid going to Kansas City. Miami's got to go to Kansas City. They can't score to save their life in that poor, cold environment, and then Miami gets bounced. Tua puts up monster numbers, but Angels talked about this. Pete's talked about it. I've talked about it. Our guests have talked about it. He came in really slim, really lean. He already has some injury problems, concussion issues. So I think the pressure for Tua to not only be healthy and to lead Miami, listen, I think it's going to be a situation where if Tua can put up 4,000 plus yards, 25 plus touchdowns, play 17 games, they run the ball effectively, Miami's going to be fine. It's a defense at times that's going to worry me. And also, too, if you stop the ground game, you got to really see where the quarterback's going to be out. So I look at Tua and I say to myself, definitely on the hot seat. I was torn between the next 2 quarterbacks in Florida. Trevor Lawrence, who, if you match him up with Daniel Jones, believe it or not, the numbers are almost identical. And then Baker Mayfield. And the reason I'm leaning towards Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence is still young. They're building around what Trevor Lawrence is doing. 2 years ago, the talk was, or 3 years ago, get him an offensive line, right? Get him an offensive line. And the problem was they draft ETN. He tears his ACL. He tears up his knee. Lawrence struggles, but then they come back. They have a better year. Playoffs, here we go. Last year was a down year. We saw that heads were going to roll. Caldwell rolls. His head gone. It's not on Dougie P. But I'm still going to give him a pass. I'm going to give Trevor Lawrence. He got the bag. Is he worth it? That's another debate for another day. I think Baker Mayfield has a substantial amount of pressure on him because everyone's waiting for this other shoe to drop when it comes to Baker Mayfield, right? And I look at Baker Mayfield and I say to myself, he's a good quarterback. And can he duplicate what he did last year? I just don't know. Nice quarterback, right? And he just quietly put together a really good season. You could have made a case Baker Mayfield could have been comeback player of the year. That's how well he played. Remember when the Rams took a flyer on him? He won that game on Monday night. He's bounced around. It seems as though Baker Mayfield has finally found a home in Tampa Bay. And he put up some pretty solid numbers. He had 28 touchdowns, only 10 picks. Offensive line did not help him out. He was sacked 40 times. He threw for over 4,000 yards. He's bounced around a little bit. I mean, if you think about it, the guy's 29 years old, Cleveland, Carolina, the Rams. Now he finds a home with Tampa. They won a playoff game. He got paid. Can you duplicate that success? That's, I look at a guy like Baker Mayfield and I'm wondering, can you do it? You've got some good weapons down there. We know that. The schedule is pretty brutal, by the way. I pulled up Tampa Bay, and I mentioned this yesterday on Back Your Play with Lloyd Vance. If you look at Tampa Bay's schedule, they've got some, I guess you can say, sticking points with their schedule. The NFC South, a lot of people think it's going to be between the Falcons and Tampa Bay. Some people think Carolina is going to be a better team. The Saints are going to be a team that's going to be struggling because of their quarterback play. But you look at their schedule, tricky spot to open up against Washington. Then you've got the Lions, Denver, the Eagles, the Falcons, the Saints, and the Ravens. That's a mixed bag right there. So what do? They drafted the kid out of Duke, the center. They went with the edge rusher in the second round out of Alabama. They got the safety and Smith from Georgia in the third round. They're trying to put the pieces in place. But I definitely think Mayfield is one of those quarterbacks. So you got Hurts, you got Prescott, you got Mayfield, you got Tua. And then, believe it or not, this is, and by the way, 1 o'clock straight up on the East Coast, right here on, again, SR 102.9 FM. Yeah, please do that, will you? Please keep it respectful when you guys are tuning in. That would be good. We appreciate the funny feedback. We appreciate you guys chiming in, but you can rip me all you want. Just don't rip the audience and say stupid stuff that has nothing to do with the show. Yeah, definitely. Always keep it respectful, guys. You can rip me all you want. I don't care. But have fun with it. That doesn't bother me one bit. But some of the other comments you guys are making, you sound like jackasses. So 1 o'clock straight up on this Thursday. So going back to these quarterbacks now, I was a little hard pressed to look at Josh Allen. And I look at Josh Allen and I think he's a really talented quarterback. I do. I think, and listen, you have to be talented to play in the NFL. He does it with his legs. He does it with his arm. The problem with the Buffalo Bills is their window of opportunity is closing. And now you get do I want to say 100% Aaron Rodgers? Who knows? An engaged defense with the Jets, Miami. New England's going to be a very bad team. If anything, I grabbed them under their win total. When it was sitting at 5.5, I hammered the under. It's dropped a little bit to 4.5. I was more comfortable with 5.5. I think they poorly constructed their roster. I think it's a really bad coaching staff. I think they're going to struggle. So that goes to Allen, McDermott, and Buffalo. And if not now, when? If you're a fan of the Buffalo Bills, he is a extremely talented quarterback, but at times he will make the worst decision in the world. But then there are times where he has to improvise and he just goes nuts. I mean, Josh Allen last year, quarterback position now, rushed for close to 600 yards. Okay, he added 15 touchdowns via his legs. He threw for 29. He had 40 touchdowns last year, and yet we're still criticizing him. Why? Because in the big spot, he makes the bad play, and you can't have that. And I think there's a ton of pressure on Allen this season. So I gave you a couple quarterbacks tomorrow. We'll look at some of the head coaches. Lloyd Vance going to join us. Also, we'll see if we can grab Steve Garner on baseball. We've got about 5 plus 10 to play with on this little shortened version of a Thursday edition Middays with Q. 1 o'clock straight up. We'll come back on the other side. I'll give you my picks as well. That'll be part of our BYP segment. So we'll give you some baseball plays on the diamond. See what you guys think as well. 727-858-6650. We'll come back on the other side. Close it out.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
All right, a couple minutes before we get out of here, let me just send this little tweet out. All right, so I got to go back and forth with the Twitterverse, if you will, as we're talking about some of these quarterbacks. Don't forget, we're on demand always. Check out Rich Q on Q. And also 102.9 FM, The Game, part of Broad Street South. So, and again, we're going to start screening more with the comments and you guys chiming in. We want good sports-related talk and entertainment talk for you guys to chime in. So we'll give you a couple cracks at that, and then you can't do it. Then typically what happens is we kick you out. That's pretty much how it works here. So again, I want to give you some plays And I want to remind everyone, Monday to Friday, 7 to 10, Pete Sheppard Show, Martinez and Company, 10 to 12, and then myself, 12 to 2, Middays with Q. Download the app, Sports Radio 1029 FM, The Game, part of Sports Radio 1029 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. We are powered by Ion TV. We love the relationship with these guys. If you guys are in the Tampa area, if you're driving around, check them out online. You can pull them up on the phone as well when any of their late breaking news stories, car accident, crashes. They give you some police blotter reports. They keep you guys in the loop, weather reports, traffic reports, especially if you guys are driving around on a Friday, rush hour, drive time hour, getting ready to leave work. Definitely give them a follow. Again, Eye on TV. We got a couple new partnerships that we are going to be announcing very soon, one in the combat sports space and a couple others as well. So as always, we encourage you guys to keep it locked in. Let me give you my picks on the diamond. And this is actually part of our BYP segment, Back Your Play, which you can also hear on my YouTube channel, Monday to Friday, every single day, Monday to Friday, BYP, fast paced, 20, 25 minutes. Look at what's going on in the sports community, sports betting community, and our segment from our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. And you guys know nothing like waking up in the morning, delicious cup of coffee to get your day started. I got mine right here in the summer with the heat. You can have some good ice cafe, some cold brew. Thanks to our new coffee sponsor at Fresh Roasted Coffee. You can too enjoy a delicious assortment of flavors, Fresh Roasted Coffee. Click the link in my show notes. We'll put this up on the YouTube channel. Special offer at Fresh Roasted Coffee. If you take their coffee quiz and see what kind of blends and kind of roast match up. I'm all about the fresh roasted dark, little sugar in there, and I'm good to go. And when you can, you check out, you use the promo code BYP20, 20% off your first purchase. So this is what I got on the diamond. We've got to play a little catch up. We were 9-3. We have dropped 3 out of our last 4 with our baseball plays, but I kind of simplified it a little bit. We always look at these pitching matchups. So the first game, I started with the Phillies, and I still believe they're the best team in baseball, let alone the National League. Nola's on the hill tonight. They've got the Dodgers. This is not a Nola that, for my money, is going to get you 17, 18 wins, but he's on course. He's on that pace. He was a much better pitcher a couple years ago. If the offense picks him up, listen, I think he's fantastic all-star. He's going to be in the Cy Young conversation. He's 10-4 right now. The run line is 9.5 minus 105. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think they bat around a little bit and get to Nola. When the Phillies have won, 22 runs and 3 wins. When the Phillies lose, 1 run and 2 losses. That's stretched across their last 5. So I'm actually leaning towards the Phils on a money line, minus 150, but I think they're going to get to Nola over 9.5. I can see a 6-4 type of game, minus 105. Yankees and the Rays. Yankees stopped the bleeding last night. I like Cortez tonight on the hill at minus 120. Again, not the Cortez we saw a couple years ago. He's a little banged up, but the lineup figures out a way to hit Tampa Bay, and it's just one of the reasons I'm going to roll with the Yankees. And then finally, Washington at the Mets. The Mets needed to get over that 500 mark. That's exactly what they did. They pushed themselves over 1 game over 500. Washington, they're struggling. Their offense is hit or miss. If you look right now at the Mets pitching and you look at Hill, 3-0, 4 of, well, I should actually say, if you go back and you look at their starting rotation, if you look at how strong they were in the month of June, we're starting to see that now over the last couple of weeks. I mentioned Peterson's on the hill. He's 3-0. I'm going to take a flyer on him. I think the Mets actually score some runs today. I'm fine. Minus 135 to get back to 100. I'm fine doing that. So there's my 3 on the diamond from our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, part of this BYP segment of Middays with Q. All right, as we start to wrap it up for the legit comments and the listeners out there, I appreciate you guys chiming in and having fun with the show, as we always like to do. As a reminder, tomorrow on a Friday, catch Pete Sheppard starting off your morning right, 7 to 10 with the Pete Sheppard Show, Martinez and Company, 10 to 12, and then myself, 12 to 2. Football heavy tomorrow, a little more baseball talk. Steve Gardner, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame voter, will join us. I also want to get his thoughts on what's going on with Tampa and Miami down in our majority of the listening audience territory. Why are these just bad franchises, especially in Marlins? I pulled these numbers up. The Marlins over the last several years, they lost 98 games in 2018. They lost 106 games in 2019. Then you had COVID, and they were 31-29. 95 losses, 93 losses, 98 losses. They went from Redmond to Jennings to Mattingly to now Shoemaker. So is it the market? Is it the ownership group? But what's going on with those Marlins? Because it's rough to see sometimes. I mean, they're making it pretty easy for these rest of these teams in the NL East. So we'll get Steve's thoughts on baseball Hall of Fame voting as well. Midway point in the season, his awards: AL, NL, MVP, Cy Young, Manager of the Year, Team Surprise, if you will. And then we'll get back to the NFL talk. I got some running backs, I got some receivers, and I wanted to close over the next couple minutes with Hard Knocks. So I'm watching Hard Knocks play out, and I get annoyed. Like, I made the joke that my Giants are so bad, they only get 45 minutes. They don't get a full hour. Now, you have to remember, everything is basically signed off on, right? So if you're watching Hard Knocks and they're covering the New York Football Giants, the Giants brass, you can watch and say, man, they're really giving this scout a lot of airtime. Well, maybe it's because they think he's a rising star in the organization and they want to push him, right? They want that narrative, push, push, push. Then you've got a situation where you got Joe Shane on the phone and Saquon Barkley's on the other line, and you can tell within 20 seconds, Saquon Barkley already made up his mind. He was not going to come back with the New York Football Giants. I mean, he just wasn't. It's like one of those phone calls where, I don't know, maybe you got that crazy uncle, or one of your buddies is calling you, or in some cases, maybe your spouse is calling you. You're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this right now, right? Let me just take the call for 20 seconds and try to get him off the line. That's what I felt that Joe Shane was having to deal with Saquon Barkley. I mean, Saquon Barkley, look, let's not treat Saquon Barkley like he's a Hall of Fame running back. The guy's injury prone. He's great back when he's on the field. But this notion that, the savior of the Giants, what did you won? You haven't won anything with Saquon Barkley. So he walked, took a couple dollars more, and he goes to the heated rival, Philadelphia Eagles. That's what stings. That's what the Giant fan can't wrap their collective, big blue hearts around. The fact that this guy goes and signs down the turnpike with the Eagles. But I think sometimes when you shed a light on an organization that hasn't won in a long time, and you're watching a show and they're more concerned about running a 440 and talking about what they're going to have for dinner, it almost looks like a circus and a clown show. That's why I was never a fan of Hard Knocks. I think it's great theater, but you also have to put it in perspective, right? We're only going to let you see what we're going to let you see. And you're watching this, and do I have more confidence in the Giant brass watching 2 episodes? I don't think so. Do I believe that Joe Shane and Brian Dable are on the hot seat this year? 100%. 100%. 100%. If the Giants have a bad season again, and I believe they're a 4 to 5 win team, then yeah, changes are going to come. And when you start to get rid of head coaches and GMs, and it's your second or your third GM, your third or fourth head coach in 4, 5, 6 years, you become a joke of a franchise. And that's what they become. That's just the facts. They're trying to build a roster. They're trying to put the pieces in place. They spent a lot of money on their quarterback that can't stay healthy. They paid him off of one very good season that he also got helped out by the running back, but he had a very good performance in the playoffs. He cashed in at $160 million. Then he gets hurt a couple games in last year. That doesn't fly well with the ownership group. Injuries are part of the game. Injuries happen. But I'm watching this and I'm saying to myself, am I really taking these guys serious right now? Is it for the cameras? Is this how they really are? Is this how you treat the franchise? I mean, I like listening to Dable talk X's and O's, and I love the segment where they had the players come in. Marvin Harrison had a chance to throw teammates and quarterback under the bus. He didn't do it. The kid Daniels looks like he's going to be a player, man. Reading the room and doing these plays. I'm fascinated by that. But the other stuff, do I walk away saying there's a lot more confidence, right? I don't know. Get ready for a reset. Team isn't good. They're not. You do have a below average quarterback. And in the NFL, I don't think it's asking much for your quarterback. Your starting quarterback, if he's healthy and plays 16, 17 games, are we asking a lot in this NFL for a quarterback to go out and throw 25 plus touchdowns, 25, 30 touchdowns, 10 to 12 picks? Uh, we're not asking a lot, but yet he has not been able to take his teammates and, help them rise to that level. He hasn't risen to that level. Rookie year, had his moments, came back down to life, and then when they made the playoffs and they beat the Vikings, he played exceptionally well. His legs won him a bunch of games. The Bears, Carolina, Colts, the Minnesota game in the playoffs, he got paid off of it. But the durability, and it's not my concern is really not the lower body. My concern's the noggin with the neck. That scares me a little bit because one more hit, he's going to be done. And then, as the texter just alluded to, that's when you have to press the reset button, and that's never a good thing in sports. You get a hit or miss in a quarterback, you get a miss, you're setting your franchise back 3 to 5 years. All right, we'll start wrapping up. Don't forget, we'll be on demand. We'll be back in the saddle on a Friday, manana tomorrow from 12 to 2, as I mentioned. Pete Sheppard, 7 to 10. Martinez and Company, 10 to 12. Myself, 12 to 2. I appreciate all the legit comments out there and the sports fans that get it and understand what we're trying to do. We always appreciate the feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. You can keep the text rolling in at 727-858-6650. Do not forget, we are powered by ION TV on this Thursday edition of Middays with Q, coming at you right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, and now powered by Coastal Sports Network. Check us out on X, check us out on IG and Facebook. Appreciate everyone chiming in. As always, Rich Quinones here, Angel Martinez behind the glass, keeping us on the air, producing this show. Have a good Sports Thursday. We'll be back in the saddle tomorrow at noon Eastern time on a Friday. A lot of NFL, a lot of baseball, a little sports betting talk, and a little boxing talk as well. Got to get into the fight scene with my boxing heads out there. Until then, have a good Sports Thursday. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.